Alright guys, I got the drive shaft pulled out, and as you can see right here in the middle of this slip yoke, this is what goes into the transmission, and right in the middle of it in there, for some reason there's a weep hole. Some of them have them, some don't, but for whatever reason it has started leaking. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this U-joint taken out, and these stock ones are pretty tricky. You can tell this one's still stock for a couple of reasons. One, you can still see the factory epoxy, whatever stuff they put in there to actually glue the caps in place. Because the aftermarket ones will actually have a clip that slides in the inside there, and I'll show you that in a few minutes. But you know, when you put the aftermarket one in, there's a snap ring that goes on the insides that hold the cap. The factory ones have this strange epoxy stuff that's injected into this cavity in here, and it seals the cap in place so it can't come out. So it gets a little tricky when you take these out, because you have to use a combination of heat and pressure to pop those loose. So I've got my trusty old propane torch here, the old ball joint master kit. Every once in a while you gotta drag that thing out, and we're gonna see if we can get this sucker heated up enough to soften this epoxy, and then we'll use our ball joint press to pop it out. And basically all you got to do is we'll push one side and it'll pop the cap out on this end. So we'll remove that cap, and then we'll turn it over and we'll push it the other way and pop the other cap out, and then you can take the yoke off. And because we're replacing the ball joint, we'll have to go ahead and work it all the way out, so we're going to take off this side as well. So let's get started. Alright, just to give you an idea of how this is set up, I ended up not finding what I needed for the bottom for the cup side in my master ball joint set. Now, I've used master ball joint sets before, so apparently this one's not as master as some other masters. Anyway, a 1 1/8 socket on the bottom. I measured the cup to make sure that it will clear the socket, and there is a gratuitous amount of room, so that works out good. So you can see all we're going to do is take the ball joint press tool, and we're going to push directly on the cap on this side, and you got the cup on the other side so that it can be pushed out without having pressure on it, obviously. So I'm going to go ahead and start heating these up a little bit, top and bottom, and then I'm going to take my impact on the lowest setting to start and add a little pressure to it, and see if it slides out. It usually does, but we're just going to go easy at first. You know, you don't want to come in too hard, bend something, or damage anything. So this is usually how I like to do it, and I like using the impact because it seems like the vibration, and honestly being able to keep everything straight is more important than, I think the pulsing doesn't really seem to tear the tools up too much. I like actually to use anti-seize on these. It's not messy, but it seems to lubricate the threads well. And but anyway, being able to use the impact and just be able to bump pressure into it, it's a lot easier to hold everything straight, as opposed to if you were turning it with a ratchet or something. You know, you're sitting there having to fight to keep everything straight. So to me, it's way better to use the impact than to try to use a ratchet. Once you start seeing the grease in the end cap start to sizzle, it's usually enough heat. Let's get the bottom. I see it starting to move. I'm going to turn this guy up a little bit. There we go. That's what I like to see. I'm going to use this to stake the, kind of make sure this is centered up the best you can with a brass hammer. And I got the cap started back in there so we know it's straight and it's not going to jam up. As you can see right there, it's all straight. So we're going to put our jig back on here. Like so. And it looks like everything's centered up, so we're going to push this cap back out the other side. That's all there is to that. So now that this cap's out on this side, we can take our yoke off and we can see this weave hole. Of course the compressor kicked on right now. I don't know how the audio is going to be, but you can see this weave hole. Some people call it a freeze plug. I'm not sure what the situation is with this guy. If it's supposed to be plugged or not supposed to be plugged. Most of them I've seen, it is plugged. Research I've found says it should be plugged, so I guess I'll take a look at a new one and see how it looks. And we'll get everything going here and get it back together. I'm going to go ahead and also get this U-joint the rest of the way out, just like we did a minute ago. So I'll spare you guys all the boring video of me getting that side out. Alright guys, I got this thing out. Now I want to show you, you see that groove around the inside of there? So now you can kind of see what I was talking about. They, from the factory, they inject this this plastic inside of here. There's like a ring on both sides. Ooh, that's still warm. And you can see, if I clean it out, there would be a groove there, but you can see how they line that up, and when they inject that groove in there, it seals that cap in. And that's why we had to heat it up, because we had to soften this stuff up enough to be able to force it out of there. I want to tell you right now, if you don't heat it up, you're going to break something. Whether it's going to be one of the ears on the drive shaft, you can damage the yoke, or yourself. So whatever you do, make sure that you heat this sucker up, and you got to heat it up enough. If you put some pressure on there and it's not moving, heat it up just a little bit more. I mean, you don't need it to be red hot, but like I said, once you start, usually about the time you start seeing the grease around the top of the caps, there's always a little bit, but you'll start seeing the little bubbles around that cap, and that's usually when it's got enough heat in it. So at that point, you know, give it a little bit of pressure, see if it starts to move. If it doesn't move, add just a little bit more heat and give it a little bit of pressure. The idea is to get the ball joint out with as little mechanical pressure as possible, because if you get that stuff soft enough, it'll pretty much push right out. You don't need a lot of force to do it. So just make sure that it's hot enough. This is a bottle brush hole, and this one's a little bit smaller, but I think I pretty much, this is my last one. But you want to go in here and you really want to clean this stuff up really good. You know, you still want to make sure everything's tight. You know, you're not trying to take any material away. You just want to make sure that what's here is clean, because it's going to be critical that it is clean when you put your new ball joint back in. And you'll see what I'm talking about whenever you do it. If it's not clean, it's going to be really hard to get a nice loose fit as far as like the movement of the ball joint. And also it's going to be super hard to get the clips in there if it's not clean. So make sure that you take a few minutes and go ahead and clean this thing up really good. Alright guys, here's our replacement parts. As you can see, this says heavy duty on it. There's a couple of different kinds of U-joints that you can use. This is a solid, non-greasable universal joint, and it comes with better grease and stuff in it, you know, to last longer. But the main thing is this being a performance vehicle. The heavy duty one's not drilled out. The greasable joints, they're actually bored out in the center with a zert fitting, so when you put the grease in there, it fills up all the caps. But by design, they're not as strong as the non-greasable units, and since this is a performance vehicle, I wanted to put a heavy duty U-joint in here. So I'll go ahead and show you guys how to get that put in right quick, and then we'll be finished up. Alright, so we're going to start off by removing the caps. I'm going to slide the U-joint inside, and you're going to push this cap in from the outside, and you want to start out making sure that it's square. I'm using a plastic mallet, and you want to square it up as much as you can. Always take a look in there, make sure your bearings are still in place, and these are. So we're going to start out by pushing this side in, and all you got to do is push it in just enough to be able to get your clip in there. So I'm going to turn this guy over. And I've also got the U-joint inserted into the cap right now to hold the bearings. So as you can see, everything is free to move. And so we're going to push it in right until the groove is visible. Alright, there's the groove. Obviously I pushed it a little bit too far, but you'll see what we're about to do here in just a minute. We're going to go ahead and put our clip in on this side. And they can be a little bit tight. Use your plastic mallet, just tap it in there. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to come in from the outside over here. And you can slide your U-joint over as far as you can that way to make sure that it's started on there. Go ahead and tap it in a little bit. Make sure you've got full motion, left to right on your U-joint, which we do. Then what we're going to do is the same thing we just did. We're going to press this guy in, and when we can get the clip on there, once we can get the clip on this side, it's also going to push that other one, the clip tight on that side. Alright. Let's make sure we can get that in there. Now we got both clips in. You may notice that the U-joint's pretty tight at this point. So what we're going to do, so we're going to put one of the bearing caps facing down. We're going to go into the corner and take our hammer and tap it in one direction. Then we're going to flip it over and hit the opposite corner in the other direction, and that ensures that both the clips are tight up against the outside. Now you see how it's nice and smooth. So now we've got a nice smooth U-joint. Everything's moving nicely. Both the clips are installed. You can see the clip there on either side. So now we got to do is work this slip yoke on there. We're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to remove these caps. We're going to put the slip yoke in place, push the caps in from the outside, and then press them in. Get this thing at an angle right here. Put our clip in. There we go. Now we'll put this side up. Again, you want to make sure you've got full movement up and down, which that feels good. So I'm going to go ahead and press this side in like I did the other one. Alright. Gonna work in our last clip. Alright, both the clips are in. This one actually feels pretty loose now, which is good. So I didn't really put that one in quite as tight as the other one, so that feels really nice. So that's completely installed. You can see the clips in there on both sides, all the way seated down. Here's the other side. You can see the end of that clip and that one. So that's how you install a U-joint, and that's going to be a nice heavy duty unit that will take a lot more abuse than a greasable unit. So that'll be nice, and everything's good to go. So I'm going to go ahead and get this guy put back in the vehicle, and we'll take it for a test drive, make sure everything's nice and smooth, and then that'll be another job done. I really want to thank you guys for watching. I appreciate you being here, and I know everybody's kind of down about the you know, all the shut-in orders and everything, but keep your head up. Everything will get better soon. In the meantime, I'll try to entertain y'all as best I can. Y'all have a good one, and I'll see you next time.